What's up, everybody? Welcome to the High Level Husband Podcast. I'm Tommy McCollister, going solo on this one by myself today as well. But it's going to be, honestly, probably one of the more real and raw and vulnerable ones that I've done. And I like to consider myself an extremely vulnerable and authentic guy. But I'm titling this one Heartbroken, and for multiple reasons. And so I'm just going to get into it because I got a coaching call coming up here shortly. And so I got to get into the goods of this before I run out of time. And so, as you guys know, me and Diane, for multiple reasons, were doing that. It was going to turn to like a 44-day sex fast, 42, somewhere around there. And today's day 38. And during the course of the sex fast, we've had like a lot of like amazing things happen in a lot of different ways. And a lot of great breakthroughs. And it's just I can't get into them all right now. I'll run out of time. But at the same time, like we've had multiple like makeout sessions and things like that have gotten pretty intense, other than just like having a finish, right? And it's been great in the intimacy department on that, of like, hey, that wasn't every day. That'd be like once a week. And if that. But tomorrow we leave to go to this event, which is what we were fasting for. And we fly out tomorrow. And so today, honestly, I was killing it. Yesterday I was thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, this has gotten like really quite easy and all of that. And don't worry, I'm going to give you guys some takeaways for you guys to be able to get some. This is going to be big for you guys on how to overcome heartbreak and things. And so anyways, we wake up this morning and I was about to get up and she's like, oh, you're not going to come cuddle? And I was like, all right, I came over. Well, dude, I haven't had sex in 38 days. And so, we're cuddling each other, and that kind of leads to some touching and things like that. And next thing I know, and I'm still not even like all like that turned on, but at the same time, like, I don't know if it's just was half asleep, haven't got the day rolling, whatever it was, because some of those makeout sessions that we've had before were like 2 hours long. This was like 20 minutes and wasn't all that intense and whatnot. And so it was really weird. But anyways, like there was multiple times where we were just going to get up and get the day going. And then I rolled on my side of the bed, and then she was rubbing on my arm, and then I pulled her in closer. And so this is where it can be too TMI for you guys. If it is, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be that guy. At the same time, I just like to keep it real and raw. So Diane comes over my side of the bed and climbs on top, and we start making out a little bit. Well, then she starts grinding on me. And honestly, it got to the point where it was really close. So I had to stop her. I was like, whoa, babe. Like, and I'm not saying like, dude, like, I'm not dogging anybody who is or anything. I'm not like a premature ejaculation type guy or anything like that at all. And I'm not dogging you if that is you. But I was like, dude, whoa, this is getting way too close. So we sit there for a minute, and then she starts moving just a little bit more, and it had already been too close. Next thing you know, it happens. And I'm literally in the moment of like, I can't believe I'm literally 2 days away from being done. Basically with the 40 days, 2 days. And it's been such a battle in so many ways. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, oh my God. I can't believe this. Like, it was almost like I was like, am I in a bad dream? Am I in a terrible, bad dream? I can't believe this. And we sit there and we talk for a minute, and she's like, this is my fault and all that. I'm like, 100% not. This is on me. This is 1000% on me. And this is where you guys know I'm always going to preach extreme ownership. And I was like, no, babe, like you tried to get it multiple times, and I kept like, pulling you close and things like that. That's not on you. This is on me. And she, of course, how amazing my wife is. She tries to make it like, about her and things like that it's on her. And it's not. So I made sure the extreme ownership's there. But I'm heartbroken. Literally every thought is racing through my mind. Every terrible thought. Because what you guys don't understand is, for the majority of my life up until about 4.5 years ago, I considered myself a failure. That was my identity, was the word that was spoken over me for most of my life was failure, from whether that was from other people or that was from myself. I would speak that over myself. Well, there's past 4.5 years, that's 0% the case. That's not my identity. I'm literally 100% non-negotiable on all my goals. I don't break anything. It's just like that thing. And I'm not like trying to brag or anything like that. I'm just saying, you guys know me, who listen to my podcast enough. That's just who I am. So in that moment, the devil's like, failure, 38 days, and you failed 2 days shy. All this authority, all these blessings you've built up are now gone. It's all gone. And I'm like, no, like, oh my God, we were getting so much breakthrough in so many areas. I'm like, it's gone, it's gone. And I'm thinking that. And I'm thinking to myself, no. And I just lay there for like a half hour. And the thoughts that are running through my mind are all those negative thoughts. And then my thoughts that are running through my mind are, man, just go downstairs and eat yourself a giant breakfast. Like, I'm like, what am I thinking? And then it's another one's like, man, just crawl back in bed and go back to sleep and sleep away the morning. And then I was like, man, what are you thinking? And then another one was like, dude, just pull out your phone and scroll on social media. All the things that I've done in the past years ago when I was a failure, those are the things I would do. I would just go shove my face full of food, or I would scroll on social media for hours, or I would lay in my bed and sleep during the middle of the day, like all those things. And he's coming back with all of those things. Yep, do it, do it, do it, do it. And I wanted to. And I'm literally heartbroken in this moment. And you might be thinking like, come on, bro, it's not that big of a deal. You made 38 days. Like, dude, but when you make a covenant with God and you make a covenant with yourself, and when you say you're going to do something, and I pride myself on being able to do everything I say I'm going to do. And this wasn't like a personal choice that I was like, oh, I'm just going to have sex at this moment, and I'm just going to come and all this other thing. No, like, it was just the perfect storm where I was fighting it back, and it wasn't like I chose to in that moment. It was my choice that brought it to that stage of like making out with my wife and things like that. Yes, that's me. And so in that moment, I'm wrestling with my flesh of like, I've still got more work to be done. I've still got to be able to conquer my flesh. I've still got to be able to get better. And I'm just struggling in that moment. Now, guys, I'm telling you, this is 2.5 hours ago that this happened. I would have never recorded a podcast before, but great leaders have vulnerable conversations. And so I have this teachable moment. So as I'm sitting there, I climb back in my bed, not to go to sleep, but I was like, I grab my Bible and I start reading. Well, there was whatever I read in that moment wasn't encouraging me. Let's just put it that way. It actually was like kind of like, oh my God, maybe this is what I needed to hear. It was talking about being more humble, and it was talking about like other things, and it was in the book of Daniel. And it was like, man, I can't remember all the things I read, and I was like, well, maybe that's for me, and maybe it's not. But the humble part of it was really kind of hitting me, because what I needed to realize in that moment was, what is the blessing? Had I put another achievement in my life, had I put another achievement of, I've now have this 40, and I'm going to give you an amazing takeaway here in just a second, but I'm just presetting the thing for you. Had I made it 40 days, 2 days away, I'd be able to say, cool, another trophy on my shelf. And I would be very proud of it because it's a very tough one. But I have a lot of those. Like, I have a lot of those things. And as I'm sure you probably do. And God told me in that moment that you're about to get a lesson that would have been bigger than the 40 days. And I'm going to give it to you right now, he said. Because I was just sitting there in solitude after I was reading the Bible, just my eyes closed, saying, God, what is it that you want me to hear? And I was just tormented and heartbroken, because I take this very seriously. I take my faith life more serious than anything in my life and my commitments. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm just like, what do you want me to hear? He said, the teachable moment of you falling short and how fast you bounce back is more important. He said, how we respond is more important than the hurt that has been had. How we respond is more important than the hurt that has been had. Because here I am in this moment of like, dude, this is hurt. I can't believe it. I'm a failure. This, that, and the other. All these thoughts are coming back in. The devil's kicking me in the face and with all my past stuff. And I'm like, dude, no. And in that moment, I went from not having any hope for this weekend that's coming up, and I'm flying across the country, spending an insane amount of money on this event, and losing hope to now regaining it within minutes. God said, if you go about the rest of your day as you normally would have, got up and still hugged your wife like you do every morning, still listen to the personal development book, still create the content and go crush the calls that you have set up for today, still get the podcast done, still be this joyful person, still live your core values, then that's more important than having another 40 days. Because what you're showing is the breakdown is even smaller, even in some of your most heartbroken moments. And now you're going to say, well, man, like your kid didn't die, things like that. And you're right. But this felt like that. It felt so terrible because that's how much territory I'm taking for the kingdom. That's how many lives I'm trying to impact for the kingdom is by doing these type of things. When you give up something for 40 straight days, and it wasn't like I gave up, not having a piece of chocolate like people do for Lent or whatever, like that ain't nothing. You give up making love to your wife for that long, there's some impacts, some negatives. I saw a lot of benefits, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't hard, it wasn't easy. A lot of really, really hard moments, a lot of growth moments. But God said, this is going to be more impactful than if you had made it 40 days. Because you're going to be able to tell people that when that breakdown happens, this is how you get back. So for me, you guys, a couple weeks ago, I talked to, so it was like this 4-part process. When the pain happens, here's what you need to do. You need to sit in the pain. You need to ask yourself why this is happening. You need to ask yourself, what's the lesson in this? And then you need to take action on it. And that's what I did. And I got the lesson, and here we are moving forward and pushing through. And now I'm using it for good. Romans 8:28 says, God will work all things together for good for those who love him. And in that moment of my darkest pain there, I was saying that verse over me, and I was like, dude, I know this is true, but I'm heartbroken, and I don't want to hear that BS right now. But here we are, 2.5 hours later, saying that. But that doesn't mean that it just came to fruition. It was about 40, 45 minutes afterwards that, if not shorter, that I was back and rolling. And I honestly thought it wouldn't be for a couple of days. And I normally don't get stuck in the breakdown for that long. You see, life has these moments where we get these teachable things in how we put them. And I got a couple stories on this that are really going to impact you. But what we're going to use them for good, right? And it doesn't always go our way. One of the lessons for me there was, hey man, don't put yourself in harm's way. Don't put yourself in a situation that you think you have control over because maybe you've won in that situation before, but you can't. Like I said, me and my wife have had probably 5 makeout sessions that are pretty intense during this time, and it never got to that. Close, but never. I was able to control it. Same with her. She was close a couple of times. But here's the thing. You may be an alcoholic. You may be on social media and porn tempts you, or naked chicks in bikinis. You need to be able to understand you can't put yourself in that position. You have maybe won those battles multiple times, but it's the one time that you just think that you have gotten cocky. I was at day 38, kind of got cocky. And I got kicked in the face. So I want to tell you that do not put yourself in the bar because you haven't drank for 6 months or a year. Do not put yourself on social media and start looking at the bikinis because you think you're over that. Do not think it's just one time masturbating and you're thinking about your wife. Do not think it's just one beer. Do not think it's just missing this or missing that. You must persevere and keep going. You can't put yourself in those positions. And that was right there for me. It was like, dude, I should have not put myself in that position. I shouldn't have. That's a lesson. And now I know that, hey, yes, I'm very strong, stronger than I've ever been, mentally, physically, spiritually, and relationally, but I've got work to do. And I need to lean on God more because the whole reason I was pulling my wife in was because I was missing her in those intimate moments. Guess what? I've had some of the most intense prayers that I've ever had during this time. Just last night, I said my favorite prayer ever that I've ever prayed over my family and my kids. Out loud to them. I'm more proud of that than being able to make out with my wife And that felt better last night than doing that. But my flesh was saying, I need to touch my wife. When I could have just touched God with my heart and my prayer, even more so in that moment. And so I want to encourage you to not do those things. But I have a friend in my life who's actually in a coaching program with me. I actually have a call with him here in just a couple minutes. He's a mountain climber, was just down in Peru. And this dude does crazy things. He was climbing a mountain down in Peru. It's the 13th deadliest mountain in the world. And just to give you for context, that Mount Everest is the 14th most deadliest. So this is even deadlier than Mount Everest. He was down there for 3 to 4 weeks preparing, doing all of that. And on summit day, there were some things that happened that they weren't able to summit. And it's a long story. I don't have time to get into it. But they weren't able to summit. And he's the guy who gets the job done. And he, on the way back down, because of the route they had to take, because they weren't able to summit and because of weather conditions, they saw something off in the distance. And in that distance, they went and looked. And it was a body that was dead. A body of a climber who 20 years ago was dead on the mountain due to an avalanche. And the body was never found, never recovered, and never seen again. He started going through this guy's pockets and trying to figure out what was going on and found out he was an American. Got his license, got his info from his pockets. The guy had been there for 20 years. Immediately sent the info to his wife and said, hey, can you try to locate their family? Now, within a few days, his body's been returned to they've got the body off the mountain. It's going to be sent back home to his family. CNN, USA Today, like all these news stations are doing stories on this and all of that. Well, for the first few days, he didn't know that was what was going to happen. He just found the body. And he was so heartbroken that he didn't make the climb up. And he just was like, I can't believe I didn't summit. I spent so much money and so much time down here. He spent the time down there that like I spent on the sex fast. And he didn't get to summit. And it was out of his control. But I kept encouraging him that there was a bigger reason for this. And now we're finding out that this family gets their body back. These big stories are picking up and God's being glorified through this in so many ways. That it wasn't about him summiting that mountain. It was in his failure, because of his failure that perceived as a failure of not summiting, a bigger thing came about of it, at God working all things together for good. And so I want to encourage you, no matter where you're at right now, it's going to be worked together for good. How we respond is more important than the hurt that's been had. If we sit and we sulk for days, you're going to do more damage. The devil's going to take more root. 45 minutes and the breakdown was gone, and now I'm back out fighting. Yes, it will still hurt sometimes. But I'm going to use this for so much good that it'll be bigger than what I would have been able to use the 40 days for. And I'm going to say, devil, I saw you. You got my flesh and you won in that moment. But I'm going to win in the long run. You darn well better believe that. Same things happen with my buddy on the climb. The same thing will happen with you. How we respond is more important than the hurt that has been had. Respond fast with the right action and use it for good. Get in prayer, get in the Bible, and just to continue on with your day and ask for grace and just love like never before because of that. But if your wife's been defensive, you guys are getting in an argument, whatever it may be, you got to just respond better. Do not let it carry on, because how we respond is what matters. Much love. God bless you.